we spent over many decades as a country, as an economy, billions with a B, many billions of dollars producing and selling and marketing and advertising cigarettes, which killed large numbers of people, but they were very profitable. If you look at the profit numbers of all of them, you'll see that there's a reason why we were all, as a nation, or an awful lot of us, hooked on cigarettes, because of the profit that came from not only producing the things, but spending huge amounts advertising them. When I was young, every billboard was covered with happy young people puffing away on whatever cigarette was advertising. We were constantly told to be cool, to be a popular person, to be an adult as you're growing old in your teenage years. You should be smoking. Heroes like, I don't know, Humphrey Bogart or Gary Cooper were sitting there puffing away at their cigarettes. That money, instead of being used to make the society better, including health-wise, was being used to destroy it. Or the profitability a few years later of installing analytic converters in our automobiles as a fake way of pretending we were dealing with air pollution, until a couple of engineers pointed out that these machines, produced at a very profitable rate, installed in cars whose prices went up to cover this thing, the whole profit-driven totality was a fraud and was actually not cleaning our air, but giving us the false sense that we were reducing air pollution and lung cancer when we were doing the opposite. And I could go on and on. Look at our problem of obesity. Why do we have obesity? Because we produce food full of fat and salt and sugar, which we know is not good for you, from which all nutrients have been withdrawn, to be sometimes supplemented by a few, vitamins chucked in there in order to delude you. In other words, what economists have always known, profit can lead you to do good things to make it, but it is just as effective in leading you to do bad things when they're profitable. We could be taking our 6 chemists, our 50 chemists, our 500 scientific personnel, and put them to work on these medicines, because lots of people suffer from them, but we're better off over here. It's fewer people, but the way the medicine is shaping up, it'll be a pill they have to take twice a day for the rest of their lives. And therein lies the profit the very fact that what I just said makes sense to everybody in the country, because we all really do know, is a critique of capitalism, where we have a society that refuses to entertain it. But I would like to take this another step, because it's even false on its own terms. Here's what I mean. Profit, we know that. I teach it. My colleagues who are not critics teach it as well. In order to understand the profit of anything, this particular medical procedure, or that particular food additive, or this particular way of constructing a refrigerator, whatever it is, to understand what's profitable is never the same thing as to understand what would be the best thing to do. And let me give you an example. Here's a medicine that cures a bunch of things, and so we're very happy. The company goes to work, produces it, takes out a patent on it, And when asked, why are you investing heavily into this medication? They say it's profitable. And most of us say, oh, yeah, it's profitable. Wait a minute. In order to know if it's profitable, you have to weigh its costs and its benefits. Yeah, but here's the problem. The costs run into the future. We don't know today what it will cost to produce that medicine 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 8 years from now. And here's something else we don't know. We don't know what all the benefits are. Maybe there'll be a discovery down the road that this medication also works for that one. Why am I mentioning this? Because we never know what the ultimately most profitable way is. If we were honest, we would say you don't know, because that's the honest answer. It's like asking someone, can you tell me what your situation will be 2 years from now? The honest answer is, I can't do that. That's not something a human being can do. Well, to know all the costs and benefits in the present and the future of making a fridge this way or introducing this new flavoring into the cookie, we don't know. So to give me the answer, it's profitable, means you're going to make money off of it because of the way we work right now. But you don't know that that's the best thing. We ought not to, here comes the punchline, we ought not to allow individuals or small groups to decide how to spend vast amounts of our money when we have not had a chance to look as best we can at what's best for the society as a whole. That's the way we ought to decide in a collective, democratic way how to do this important question of investing in this way rather than that way, producing these goods rather than those goods. To allow that to be done by small groups of people who tell you honestly they're making decisions on what the profit flow in the near future will be to them, that argument ought to be what disqualifies them from being in that position. And therefore, the answer, it's profitable, answers nothing. Profit, and look, I'm the product of American higher education and economics. I teach at a university to this day. I know what they teach. I know what we all learned. We all learned to believe something that isn't true. That profit is some neutral, optimal standard. In other words, if it's profitable, oh, well, then great, we should do it. No, no, no. Cigarettes were profitable. We shouldn't have done it. Catalytic converters in cars were profitable. We shouldn't have done it. Goldman Sachs is admitting that we do research in this country guided by what's profitable, not by what might be the general commitment to maximizing the health of our people. Profit is a false god, if you like. We have been taught to believe a magic that the profit, which is after all only that portion of the value of anything that flows into the hands of the owners of the enterprise, of the capitalists, right? You and I get wages and salaries. They get the profits. To then say profit is what ought to be maximized is saying what the business ought to be is good for the minority who get the profits, not for the majority who do the work and get the wages and the salary. That's a bizarre way of organizing an economy. It's not the paragon of efficiency. It is slavery to capitalism, and we ought to grow up and grow out of it. I'm sitting here in New York City where the people just elected a person who calls himself a socialist to be the candidate for mayor. And if I have my news correctly, over the last 2 or 3 days, something like that happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where another socialist is looking like they may very well be the next mayor of Minneapolis, which is a major American city. Um, I think what's happening is that finally, and I mean finally after many, many decades, it is dawning on people that when you look around and you see all the things that are frightening headlines or things that you know are not good about the society we live in, that the problem may not just be this or that infraction of a rule or this or that bad behavior, but that there may be something more systematic that we have to address. You know, it's like when you discover when the refrigerator repair person comes to your house because your refrigerator is on the fritz and it's summer and it's very bad. And the poor person futzes around and leans to you and say, look, I can fix it, but if I do, you will be calling me 2 or 3 weeks from now because it will conk out again. And yeah, it'll only cost you $200 this time, and it'll only cost you $200 next time. But I've got to tell you, and there's that pregnant pause there for a moment. I've got to tell you, you need a different refrigerator. You know, it's over. Refrigerators have a life, and then they are no longer. And you're throwing your money away, basically. Be better off spending more and having a better machine. Well, I think we are at that. I think Americans in large numbers now are realizing that the system itself, that there's something that makes the prices that are offensive in the store and the job you can't get and the income you can't increase. You're beginning to see that these are things that are all connected and that you need to address the totality. And I think that's why people listen to your program. That's why I have the audience that I've been able to build up over the last few years, which surprises me. I did not anticipate it. I did not expect it. I won't deny for a minute that I'm happy about it, but I am a kind of weather vane, as are you in your program, for this beginning of a collective grasp that we are, for better or worse, and it'll be both, we are at a transition point historically. You know, there's an old saying, you know, beware of the process if you live in quote unquote interesting times, you know, because they cut both ways. And we are seeing, you know, Trump cuts one way. But if I can be a little flippant, if I were a socialist and was asked the question, why do you think socialism is emerging? And I would answer, it has a fantastic recruiter. His name is Trump.